Yeah, so as bad as the Fonz and the Happy Days gang was, it sadly was only the beginning for how far this franchise would fall. Happy Days is definitely one of the most influential sitcoms in TV history, but it's clear the show was past its prime by the 80s, and it was clearly trying to do whatever it could to stay relevant. And while I was unable to find any evidence to really prove this, it's hard to call it a coincidence that all this happened while there were big changes going on at their production company. On the production side, most people associate Happy Days with Gary Marshall, but there were two other names who were primarily in charge of the production company, Thomas Miller and Edward Milkis. Then in 1979, Robert Boyett was ascended to producer status, and the company became Miller Milkis Boyett Productions, and that seems to be when the problems started. The only show they produced in that time that lasted more than a full season was Bosom Buddies, and among the others that didn't do so well, that included one of the most infamous spin-offs in television history, when they decided a new show was needed centered around Richie Cunningham's little sister Joanie and her relationship with Fonzie's cousin Chachi Arcola. Of course, Happy Days had already spawned two very successful spin-offs in Laverne and Shirley and Mork and Mindy. But keep in mind, both of those shows focused on one-shot guest characters who drew huge pop from the studio audience, which meant not only could they be spun off without disrupting the show's main cast, but they then had the freedom to branch out those characters into their own entities without a history of them constantly playing off the original cast. Again, I have no proof to blame Boyett for this, but keep in mind that Milkis got bumped down to associate producer for this show. I actually can't find a ton of information on the show's background. In fact, doing a Google search on the show mostly brings up articles about the star's recent actions, particularly the troubles of Erin Moran, who in 2012 was reported homeless after she was kicked out of her Hollywood home and then from an Indiana trailer park, while Scott Baio in interviews acted pretty cold to her condition. Henry Winkler was a little more benevolent, working to get Moran a guest role on the revived Arrested Development series. But we're not here to talk about all of that drama. This is TV trash, not true Hollywood story. So let's get into finding out just why Joanie Loves Chachi was such a colossal failure.
There's something magic in the way you hold me in your eyes.
No one ever warned me love just takes you by surprise. I don't know what's come over me, you got me hypnotized when you look at me.
Must have dozed off. I mean, what the frack, people? This was the only Gary Marshall show with Miller Milkis where the theme music wasn't made by Charles Fox or Norman Gimbel. And good night does it show! I mean, let's hear that Happy Days theme again.
These days are
Or how about this?
Give us any chance, we'll take it. Read us any rule, we'll break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true. Doing it our way.
Heck, even the Mork and Mindy theme with no lyrics had a tune you would just never forget. This? The only thing I can think of while trying to keep my eyes open is what the hell did they think this show was going to be? It's not an upbeat tune enough for a comedy, but it is a spin-off of a sitcom and it's only a half hour long, so you don't think this is gonna be a drama. We haven't even started an episode and you've got me convinced this thing had no direction whatsoever. So the pilot episode of this show, meant to feature Joanie Cunningham and Chachi Arcola, opens up with Al Del Vecchio. Yes, luring Joanie and Chachi wasn't enough for this show. They had to have Al Molinario's character tag along as well. See, when you have to pull another character from the main show to try and draw interest, maybe that should have been the #1 sign that you were headed on the road to Craptown. So it seems the setting here is that Al married Chachi's mother and they moved to Chicago where he's looking to open a new restaurant. This isn't sitting great with Chachi as his heart is still in Milwaukee with brown eyes wah wah wah.
Come on, let's see how the restaurant goes, then we'll go visit Milwaukee. 1 month, I promise.
A month? Oh, come on, I can't believe this. Do you realize it's already been 2 weeks since I saw Joanie, huh? Another month, I could suffer a permanent disorder of my nervous system. And all my teeth could fall out.
No, kid. Your teeth will fall out from all of the scenery you're chewing right now.
Here comes the family. Hey, Aunt Carmelita. Hey,
And thus we get the most stereotyped scene of an Italian family on television right up until all 17 of Joey's sisters appeared on Friends.
That's Uncle Rico.
Oh,
He thinks he's the head of the family. The rest of us don't. Try to get along with him. It will make our lives a lot easier.
Translation: he's one of the only new characters we have for this show, and you're gonna hate him, but please don't hate us for making him.
I saw your restaurant downstairs.
you gotta walk through it to come up.
Music. A restaurant needs music. And music is my life. Here's my card.
Oh, it's handwritten.
Yeah, I got 14 of them. And I got a group that's perfect for your place.
I wouldn't hire you as my agent, and I'm so bad at selling myself I can't even get my web show onto Channel Awesome.
You got someone?
Chachi. He's gonna sing in my new restaurant.
When I first saw you, you didn't even notice me. But I promised myself I'd get to you eventually.
Ladies and gentlemen, Exhibit A that Disney isn't alone in trying to turn no-talent hacks into music stars. It's not until halfway through the pilot that Joanie finally appears, and of course it has to involve hijinks.
All right, what's your name?
Joanie.
Joanie, is that with a Y or an I-E?
Hi, Joanie.
How do you do?
A pleasure to meet you, huh? We should talk, huh?
Sure.
She looks like a Miss Goody Two-Shoes. If Chachi's gonna be on stage with a girl, it would be better for his image if the girl was a little
Sexier?
yeah.
Thanks a lot.
These girls, they love Chachi, huh?
I know.
So why don't you give him a break?
Okay, who else wants to see Joanie make this guy sing soprano for the rest of his life? So you probably know where this is going. Joanie tries to sex it up when they perform together the next night, which of course gets Chachi all jealous and leads to at least one customer getting fresh with her, so Chachi calls him out just as, okay, we just gonna bring in the whole original cast for this thing.
What in heaven's name was she wearing?
Well, it wasn't the costume I made her.
Well, I should hope not.
You gotta wonder how much Ron Howard was thanking his lucky stars that he got off this train before it hit the goat on the rails.
Joanie, what happened?
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Chachi punched me in the face.
Hey, what?
I was trying to punch somebody else. Which reminds me. Hey, pal! You better get out of here! I'll give you worse than I gave her!
To sum this up, Al has to convince the Cunninghams that he'll look after Joanie and keep Rico from steering her down the wrong path, so they'll let Joanie stay in Chicago near Chachi, while Joanie agrees to live with her friend that's attending Northwestern.
Chach, how come we were dying to see each other again, and when we did, it was so crummy?
Lazy writing? This was the first of 4 episodes that aired in the spring of 1982, and they did draw decent enough ratings to convince ABC to give them a full series for the fall of that year, with no clue whatsoever just how much it was going to fall. Basically, this show was the 1980s equivalent of a tech stock bubble.
Manager of your group, it is my job to get you jobs, right?
You couldn't get that kid a job as a Mary Kay salesman, and all he'd have to do to sell product is show up on housewives' doors with his shirt unbuttoned. Once the show got picked up for a full series, the story basically focused on Joanie and Chachi needing their band to land gigs and keep working in order for Joanie to be able to stay in Chicago.
We're gonna get the job.
Yeah, but Chachi, what if we don't? My parents are gonna make me go back to Milwaukee, and I'll never be able to see you again.
Come on, Joanie, Milwaukee wasn't that bad at that time. The Braves were still a decent team. The Packers were just coming into their own. I'm sure there were some other good things about the place.
I'll love you forever and always be true.
Like him, I guess. Yeah, not surprising at all, the first episode of the show's first full season had to shoehorn Fonzie in there. And yeah, I know the Fonz was in the premiere episodes of both Laverne and Shirley and Mork and Mindy, but those were both token appearances, and the second part of those episodes meant to spike ratings for just that pilot while relying on the main characters of the new show to carry him down the road. With Fonzie being instrumental in this episode's plot, it's this whole thing where Chachi says Fonzie's in his band and is his father to try and get a gig. The entire episode feels like it could have been a Happy Days ep and no one would know the difference. I mean, the only thing I can think of that would be more blatant fan service would be finding an excuse to have Chachi in the buff.
I got my shorts on.
I think I've tempted fate more times than Nash has had to report people trying to make meth in a Florida Walmart. The ironic thing about putting Fonzie in an episode is that this series was such a blatant attempt to try and prove a show could be carried by characters other than the Fonz. While many point to the shark jumping incident as Happy Days' point of no return, the thing that seemed to really start the decline for the show was Fonzie softening and growing as a character, getting his diploma, and looking to be a more mature influence on his friends and the people around him, which was pretty much the exact opposite of what drew the young audience to him in the first place. Admittedly, most of that was mandated by the network, but with the show's decline, it's not hard to see those behind it desperately wanted to prove the show was about more than a rebellious James Dean knockoff character that they originally considered so superfluous that he wasn't even in the opening credits for the first season. So they brought in Chachi to essentially be Fonzie's replacement, and to be honest, he actually was a popular character when the show originally ran. It's only in more recent years that people began resenting him taking over storylines. But because he was so popular, and the production staff was both shipping him with Joanie and likely knew Happy Days wasn't going to last much longer, they clearly decided the way to go was to create a new show with characters expected to be the next generation for this franchise. But there were other issues besides whiffing big time on the idea that these two could carry a series. One problem there was the creative staff. The 4 episodes that aired in the spring were written by the actual Happy Days writers, but once the show was launched into its own series in the fall of that year, it was given a completely new staff with no experience on the previous show. Scott Baio would later talk about how no one on the staff knew how to write liked for the characters, and that some of them had chemical issues, and therefore everything was falling apart with no direction behind the scenes. And I can totally believe that the creators were on something, because the show was also part musical, where we got to see our title characters show off their talents every episode.
Some guys, they lead you on. You can't believe a word they say. Some guys, they put you off, but I could never be that way.
Some girls act so cold, they've only got themselves to blame. Some girls, they just don't know, every guy's not the same.
You know, at least with the monkeys, we got to see them fight a mad scientist or rescue a princess every now and then. What we get here, for the most part, is episodes of Joanie and Chachi bickering, Chachi getting incredibly jealous of some new guy hanging around Joanie, lather, rinse, repeat. Because the only type of good entertainment about a TV couple is when they're constantly at odds with one another. Corey and Topanga, Dharma and Greg, Gomez and Morticia. Your argument is invalid. Go back to learning how to not be a hack writer. And yet, ultimately, none of it caught on with audiences for the long term. The show dropped heavily in viewership, coming in at 60th in the ratings for the fall 1982 season. And yes, back in the early 80s, that was still pretty bad. Bad enough that it was clear the network gave up on it pretty quickly. If the air dates posted on Wikipedia are accurate, the show went on hiatus in December 1982 after 11 episodes aired, then 2 final ones were thrown in on May 1983. The last one teased the idea of the 2 characters eloping, but they called that off by the end of the episode. If it was a desperate attempt to get another season, that made even less sense because the show wasn't just damaging itself. Moving all those primary characters to another series led to a whole new group of characters being added over on Happy Days, and I think you can guess how well that went over. This was one of the dumbest ideas for a spin-off ever. The only things I could think of dumber would be if they gave the Ropers or Ina Straight their own shows. Oh wait, those happened as well! And they all sucked for a reason! The show basically comes off as Happy Days light, with stories and characters that viewers were not interested in as much as the studio thought. It's a crystal clear example of show creators not understanding the audience by trying to shoehorn in their favorite characters, and sadly, they may not have even gotten the hint after this. After the show was canceled, the main actors were all sent back to Happy Days, where they still tried to focus on Joanie and Chachi's relationship, right until the very end, where the series finale in 1984 was all about them finally getting married. It was the hill they chose to die on, and after Happy Days ended, things really started coming apart for Miller Milkis Productions. Edward Milkis left the company shortly thereafter, and the renamed Miller Boyett Productions severed its partnership with Paramount, moving on to Lorimar, and it would be 2 years before they made another show that made it on the air. To their credit, the company rebounded and produced numerous shows into the early 90s, to the point where ABC's whole TGIF block in 1990 was nothing but Miller Boyett shows. As for this show, believe it or not, it actually got a DVD release in early 2014. So this series got a DVD release while we're still waiting on the last 7 seasons of Happy Days to get them. Apparently CBS's DVD department has even less sense than the Warner Archive collection. See you next time on TV Trash.